Rained last night, so it's much better. I think it's down by 4 or 5 degrees, so we are pretty okay. Not too bad.
And what about in England? What's happening in England? London.
It's cool.
It's cold? Okay.
It's about 15 degrees here, which...
Oh, you're lucky. 15 degrees. I'd kill for 15
Pretty
degrees.
good right now. We're 40 and 35 and 42.
Well, when we've had 23, 24 last week, 15 is cold. So
15 is cold, definitely. You need a hoodie. You need something.
Yeah.
So at the daytime, we're about 34, and then the night it drops down to about 18 to 25 between.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, no complaints for the 3 months that we have our short summer. And then it's back to winter and boots.
Back to winter and boots. I remember those times in Montreal. Yeah.
Oh, God. We've had a killing winter this year.
Really?
Yeah, it just stretched like gum. It wouldn't end.
Ouch. And then straight into COVID. How delightful.
And then COVID, exactly. So it really impacted quite a few industries here in Canada. Half, I think, of small businesses have shut down permanently. So
yeah,
it's sad.
I think we haven't seen, we've only just seen the tip of the iceberg at the moment.
For sure. So, yeah, for sure. It's what's to follow.
Yeah. Let's hope they can get a vaccine soon, because otherwise people will stay at home.
Yeah, for sure. How are things in England? Have they somewhat started normalcy back, or still working from home or quarantined?
Yeah, we're slowly moving into this new norm, or whatever this new norm is, and it's been quite interesting because the United Kingdom is 4 countries, and each of those 4 countries have had different unlock measures. Which is not confusing if you're firmly in the middle of one of the countries, but pretty confusing if you're getting close to the border of one and your job is on one side. So there was one point where people were being actively encouraged to go to work in England.
Okay.
But in Wales and Scotland, you couldn't work from the office. So even if your office was in the other country, like 20 miles away, you couldn't cross the border.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, somewhat confusing.
Okay.
And they say parenting's confusing, but COVID has definitely made it confusing.
Yes, absolutely.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
Hiya.
Sorry for joining a little late. I was actually in the middle of a meeting at work.
Oh, you're entitled to do that.
I hope you're well, Maha.
We're good, alhamdulillah. We have the masks, all of us. How is everyone?
I am
good.
My name, so someone asked me to introduce myself.
Okay.
So my name is Raana Ahmed. I work with the PO Board Education, or the Ministry of Education. I also work with the Ministry of Immigration. I've been in the education field for about 10 years or so. I've been working with youth and parenting. I've also been working counseling. I've done numerous leadership and training roles. I've also facilitated numerous workshops on the subject of parenting, because in my field, that is something that is sometimes I feel missing, and that's where youth kind of seep through the cracks. We also offer programs for youth who are at risk. I also worked with Violence Against Women program. We are constantly trying to get youth more involved, so they're off the street, and trying to just work with parents at the same time. So yeah, that's basically what my role is on a daily basis.
Busy.
Busy, exactly.
I would like Eyesha to introduce herself.
So I'm Eyesha Raheel Khan. I live in Islamabad. When we were in our mid-20s, me and my husband, we started thinking, how can we stay young for a long time to come? So we came up with the idea, let's start working with kids. And that's what we do. We started a school many years ago. It's been, I think, a good 17 years now. And the age group that we work with starts all the way from 2-year-olds to 18-year-olds. So, and we've been directly involved in, the academics and counseling. So that experience has kept us young, very up to date. And what I have, the conclusion that I've come to is that Maha and Shahma's topic, it is like Neville said, it's a very vast topic, and we have so much to say. I mean, it can be a series of webinars. And so basically we run a school here in Islamabad. And I am also the career and guidance counselor.
And besides that, you guys are also parents actually. So the way I see it, we would be covering, I would say, the parenting and the educator side both from both of you guys, because Eyesha is the, mother of 3 and Raana is the mother of 2. So my first question is, how would you define your parenting, style different than, your parents, because parenting is a learned behavior. So how would you I would say differentiate your parenting with your parents' parenting? So my question is with Eyesha first, and then Raana can follow.
So just like at work, I work with a very vast range of age groups. Even at home, I have a 19-year-old and my youngest one is 3-year-old. So my experience, so I'm a millennial parent, and then I'm a very latest parent. So I can, and then comparing to the kind of parenting I received, so I probably have a vast experience in terms of, going through generations of parenting. Like you said, parenting is a learned behavior. But, the interesting thing is there is no training involved. There is no training that you receive for being a parent. You just jump into the role and you learn as you
swim through it,
Like they say, you build the aeroplane while flying it. So that's what I'm still doing. I am still discovering parenting. If I compare to what I received, my parents, I'm very fortunate to have 2 lovely, parents who were very understanding. But if I look at the difference that I, remember as a child, parenting at my time was all about control and no questions being asked. I mean, I received my fair share of compassion and love, and so I am in no way feel that my parents lacked anywhere. But the tone of parenting was about control. The questions asked were, we were not supposed to ask many questions. Some things were just the way it is, or if you ask, I mean, because I said so was a very common phrase that I heard in my home. So parenting has evolved over time. I won't say it has changed, it has evolved. Parents have become smarter. We encourage questioning now. And when we encourage questioning, I mean, I'm happy to answer all kinds of questions that my kids might have. And I think that is what's making the change, when you question, you're ready to learn. So, and you make, I think you inculcate risk-taking in your children. And that's what I think is a very important, I think, positive change that has come into parenting. At school, even I notice that children are very, very confident in asking their questions. They question, why is this so? Why should I do that? And once, I feel it's very easy for parents and teachers to help kids conform to certain norms when you explain why. I never received the answer to this why. So I feel parents today are creating more of risk takers and a better growth mindset, in other words, because we are allowing questions and we are happy to answer. So that's just, I would give somebody else the opportunity to answer this and take it up from here.
Yes, Raana.
I have so much to say. I think I can write a book.
Go ahead, do it.
Okay, so I'm just going to piggyback on what Eyesha said, that yes, while I was growing up, I experienced the same style of parenting. I think I would label it as authoritative parenting. And I was given the task and no questions asked, and that's just the way it was. So yes, but I did have loving parents. They did what they understood was correct for us at that time. But what I learned from that, I'm still learning parenting, to be very honest. Every day something new pops up and I'm like, how do we figure this out? So we're evolving. It's a learn as you go, work in progress, I would say. But what I learned as a parent was communication. I think communication is key. It's you have to, nothing is off the table for me or my kids. And that's what I really wanted to instill in my children, that nothing is off the table. You come to me for anything. I feel when your children are asking questions, that's the green light. You have to start worrying when your kids don't ask questions, because then you figure what's going on in their mind. Why are they not coming to me to ask questions? So that's where my concern is. As long as my kids are coming to me to ask questions, no matter how many questions, I love it, because then I know that I'm their number one person to come to. And I think I actually made that mark that they can trust me enough to come to me without without any fear. Because when I was being raised, there was an instilled fear inside children, that we were so scared of the aftermath of not listening, or that authoritative parenting style of what's going to happen. So I don't want that fear communication involved in my relationship with my children. And I tell that to every parent that I meet when I counsel, that you need to open that door of communication. The more you have that open door communication, the more you will know your children. And another thing as this is just personally my experience, is that to acknowledge when you're wrong. Because we're human beings as well. We're not right all the time. And sometimes my children will say things that, you know what, Mom, you were wrong. And I say, yes, I was wrong. You're absolutely right. I was wrong too. So the acceptance piece, to actually accept that, you know, we were wrong and, you know, you were right and I apologize, has actually really helped me to be a better person, to be a better parent for my children. And to actually just realize that, you know, maybe this parenting style isn't working. Let's try something else that will help with my children. My children are 15 and 11. So two different children, two different people totally. So my parenting style for both is very unique for both of them. So I've learned that along the way. And I really appreciated what Eyesha said, that it's evolving. We're evolving. It's an evolved parenting style is evolving all the time. But sometimes I feel when I see parents and I'm counseling, I feel like they're still doing what their fathers have done or their forefathers have done, and they cannot break that sort of tradition from generation to generation. They just feel like this is what was done with us, so this is how we're supposed to do it with here.
So do you think it differs from culture to culture, because Canada is a multicultural country, so you know, like they're quite
Yes, I do feel that. But then I really try to make the parent understand that you are not in your country. This is a different country. The education style is different. Your children will learn something. So if your children are learning or asking a question in an educated, structured environment, you need to answer those questions rather than your child not asking those questions, and then they're going outside and learning the information the wrong way. So that sort of authoritative style parenting sometimes backlashes at you, and it doesn't work for parents. And I've seen that over and over with parents who try to become more strict in countries outside of their home country. I think they're just in fear that their children, won't have control over their children. So yeah.
What's your experience with millennials?
Your voice is echoing, Maha.
Okay, just a minute. Let me just ask the question from.
Sorry, somebody is there. So Neville, what do you have to say?
Well, I find all this fascinating. Frankly, being a parent of 3 of my own and a parent to 2 stepkids, that we all came together when the youngest was 3, almost 3, and the eldest was 14. So, I feel for Eyesha having to deal with a 3-year-old and an 18-year-old, because although you want to appear fair, there is nothing that you're going to do that's fair, really. And equally with Raana, an 11 and 15-year-old, they're close enough where they think actually they should both be treated equally. But the reality is they're two completely individual people, and they just happen to be your kids. And I think this is where we need to start to sort of peel back the onion, really. I mean, you mentioned communication. I think that's absolutely vital. I think we should also get into the fact that there are two parents, not one.
Yes.
Yes. There's no specific role defined for either of these parents. And equally, for the first 2 or 3 years of our lives, although we're in one closed family, we've got to recognize that there's a bigger family that are saying, well, you shouldn't say that to them, and you really need to make sure you're not doing this. And all of this advice that we get from our own circle of influence of how they would do it. And the point is, they're not you, and equally, your kids are not theirs. So I find this arena absolutely fascinating, because it really does instill in that small individual the ability to ask questions, encourage them to ask questions. But of course, when they go to school, they may be unique in asking questions, and everyone else is very shy. And then they'll come home, and then you have to deal with those type of relationships that they're going through. But of course, you're not there. You're only hearing it from your child's perspective. So if you were to say all this up front, the likelihood of you having a child will probably be about 1,000,000 to 1. You probably wouldn't want one because of all these competing things that are coming in, which means you've got to be really resilient as well. It's your attitude that's going to be challenged here all the time, but it will dictate their attitude and their attitude. So, as Raana said, she could write a book about it. Please do, by the way. I'll critique it for you. I'll write a foreword, do anything you like, really. Just because it's personal experiences that are really going to make the difference here. And equally, we need to get into the discussion about when our child goes to school, what's our relationship with the teacher?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because although, and I see this in the UK all the time, being a governor of several schools, chair of governors, we would have these open days at the beginning of the year where the parents were not just encouraged to come in, but told to come in. And you sign a contract between the teacher, the child, and the parent. And it basically says that the parent's going to support the child and also support the school. And then the contract is put in the top drawer and never gone back to for 8 years. Because it just never happens. I mean, you sign this piece of paper that says, yes, I'm going to be supportive, but the first piece of homework your child gets a B and you think they should have got an A, you're down at the school, banging on the door, my child deserved an A, what are you going to do about it? And that's reality. That's what happens all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And equally, teachers aren't taught to deal with parents. They're taught to deal with kids. So this is a massive subject. So good luck.
So Eyesha, as an educator, what do you see, what should be the role of an educator or a teacher in the development of the child?
First of all, what Neville said, it is teamwork basically between the school and the parent. And what we don't understand at times is that parents have to do the parenting and the school has to do the schooling. Whenever there's a mix-up, when parents start expecting from the school to do certain things which are responsibility of the parents, it doesn't work. So, and sometimes parents forget to inculcate this thing in their children that, both the school and the parents are on one side, working for the benefit of the child. What starts happening is that, now talking about attitudes, what you were saying, It's the way the parent perceives the school. What is attitude basic? The attitude is all about how your orientation to situations and people, and so the way a particular child's parent sees the school's role in their development, that's what starts manifesting in the child's behavior. So if the parent gives this confidence to the child that your teachers and I are on the same side, and similarly it happens with parenting. If your child knows that your mother and father are in different boats, so they start to exploit them. It is the same thing with schooling. So you see, the school and parents have to be on one side. They can fight in a room over how certain things should be done or should not be done. But when you're in front of the kids, you need to be one consolidated decision. And that's when, and I've seen in my experience, schools, parents who are very supportive of the school, and so their kids are actually excelling in all areas because they trust. The relationship of trust, that is, once you build a relationship of trust, there's wonders you can do with a child's life. But if you start questioning, you see, as parents, one has to understand, when you put your children in a school, you are giving your most precious, I would say, most precious thing in the world to us.
Commodity. You're probably right first time.
So basically, it's the most precious thing you own. Your children, and you entrust them to the school and the teachers for a certain number of hours every day. This can't happen unless you trust the school. So this is what I'm saying. You build a relationship of trust, and then you see the kind of wonders that you can do with your kids. If you're in different boats, it just doesn't work. Children are very smart. They know how to exploit. And that's what we need to, become smarter than them as a team, not separately. So,
I would like to keep the participants also involved if they want to ask questions directly. Well, there is a question from one of the participants. They're saying a question for both Eyesha and Raana. What has your experience been raising your teenagers?
Again, book part 2.
That's a good one.
Okay. You know what is learn as you go. Honestly, what helped me was I would think of myself when I was 14 and 15. What were my struggles? What were my insecurities? Where was my self-esteem? Where was my attention? How to get to talk to me at that age? Like what would get me to open up? And I always try to be talking to my daughter as someone she can trust. And I remember my daughter was having some difficulty in middle school, and she would come home and talk to me about it. And I'm a very solution-oriented person. I want a solution immediately for the problem. And she would talk to me, and I would just figure in my mind, I would be like, what's the solution? What's the solution? Should I talk to the teacher? What should I do? What's the strategy? What should we do? And I realized that later on, she just wanted me to listen. That's all she wanted me to do. She didn't want any input. She didn't want what should be the strategy, how to solve this, nothing. She would come home and she would just talk. And I would nod, and she just loved the fact that, Mom, I just want you to listen. Just listen to me. And I realized at that age, and even now, you just sometimes just want to vent and you want to listen. And especially when your hormones are going crazy and you're at that age, you don't understand, you're figuring things out. Someone to listen to, I think that was key for my relationship with my daughter. Another thing that was key for me is being happy. I think my mood set the mood for the home. And I was reading a book, I don't remember. And in the end, the last line that the author wrote was, nothing is more important than a happy parent.
Nothing more important than? Sorry?
A happy parent.
Okay.
So, and I just tried to, and that made so much sense to me in so many ways, because I remember my mother, when she would be upset, the whole house would be like, oh my God, like, we would be like shaking in our boots, and we would be like, we not disturb her, don't go near the bear. So Mama Bear is angry. So yeah. So but then I realized that I can't. I don't want to do that. And even from my own mental well-being, I want to be a happy person, and I started really following that consciously since my daughter turned 13, I want to say. And it has really improved my relationship with her on so many levels, because I think for her, I've become more open to understanding her issues and more open to her to come to me. Rather than, even if you are in any relationship and if either of the parties are always in a foul mood, you will never want to actually talk to them. You won't. It's just the way how human behavior is. You're more welcoming when you're happier in a more positive mood. And I realized that's what sets the mood at home for everyone at home. So these two things really, really worked for me. Thank you.
What about you, Eyesha?
My experience, like Neville said, they're individuals. There is no strategy which worked for both of them at the same time. I mean, I had to constantly adapt. I mean, they're two different people. What worked with one simply did not. I'm not including the 3-year-old because she's just still growing up. But
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to leave and I'll shortly join back in. Okay.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Raana. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So nothing. I mean, there's one thing will not work with all the different children. So you have to constantly adapt. Secondly, what I've noticed, and I'm going to empathize with all the parents. I mean, we may have very interesting points to share, all our knowledge, but when it comes to you being a parent yourself, you always fail. I mean, whatever you preach, you just can't practice. It just doesn't work that way. So you have to constantly correct yourself. I tell when parents come to visit me, I tell them, please do not compare your kids. I go home and do the same thing at times. And then I correct myself. So it is okay to make mistakes as parents. You're human beings too. I'm a human being. I may have an ocean of knowledge on parenting and schooling, but when it comes to you being a parent yourself, you will make mistakes. It is okay as long as you remember how to revert back to what you're not supposed to do and what you're supposed to do. So teenagers, second thing, I mean, how to raise teenagers, it's a very vast topic, but let me tell you, kids do outgrow all the tough times you see with them as teenagers. Eventually, they will become your best friends. I can tell you, my elder one, I had, my usual share of ups and downs with her, and now she's like my best friend, and those days are just gone. And it takes time. There's nothing specific I did that worked. So you have to live through their growing up also. So there's no magic formula that will fix everything. So just be easy on yourself as parents. I mean, this happens to everybody. And the same thing does not work with all the kids. So keep evolving, keep reading, keep correcting yourself, and don't feel bad. And never give up. You can't give up on your kids, ever.
For sure. And Neville, somebody is asking you, is this authority arena only for Asia or universal? How was your experience?
It's universal. Raana talked about listening. And she also talked about she was a solution finder. I mean, a lot of parents in the world of business are solution finders. We're constantly thinking of what happens here, how does this go over here, etc., etc. And when one of our children come to us with a problem, we're the ones that are there with a solution. And the interesting thing is, as Raana was saying, keep your mouth shut. Just listen. Because your child is probably not asking you for a solution. They just want a friend that they can talk to, knowing that it's unconditional love and it's not going to go anywhere. But like anything else, I mean, to me, it's the best leadership development anyone can do, Walk in someone's feet for 2 years that's got a 13 and a 14-year-old. Because you will learn so much and allow them to grow. And the thing is here, I mean, I think Raana mentioned teamwork as well. It is teamwork. And it's a very special form of teamwork that you will, if it's done well, you'll never, ever achieve that anywhere else in your life until you have kids.
Yeah.
So any teenagers listening in here or young people listening in, you won't experience that special bond of teamwork until you have kids of your own or grandchildren, you know. And it will evolve. And Aisha's right. It just evolves. And there isn't a book that says, here's all the parenting skills for Eyesha, you know, because these are the skills that she's missing and she needs to go and improve. I think I said that last week about, you know, there's no book written about individual attitude. There's just generalities.
Yeah.
If you Google parenting or parenting skills, you will probably get 3 billion hits in 0.5 of a second. Which one's got your name on it? And the likelihood is none, because they don't know your children, they don't know you, they don't know your experiences. But like anything else, our experiences as a child on the other end of parenting are the ones that we most refer back to, and until we think, well, that really didn't go well, did it? So it's that evolution. So the question I've got that maybe other people can contribute to is, how do you build this special trust? Does it start when they're 4 or 5, or does it start much earlier? And how does it start?
Participants, you can unmute yourself and, you know, like give the response to Neville, please. Any willing participant? Yes,
I'm not a parent yet, if I can.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I interrupted. No, you can go ahead. No problem.
No, you go ahead. You're a parent, I'm not, so you can go ahead.
Parent or no parent, you still come to deal with kids.
Yes.
So,
That's
yes, I would like to say that to build that trust, you have to be authentic. You have to live by your promises. You have to be true to yourself and to your kids. Whatever you promise, even at the small age, you know, if you promise them that if they commit a certain task and you're going to do this, you have to do this. If you promise anything to them, you must live up to your promise. And secondly, what Raana said is very crucial also, that if you make some wrong step or we are at fault on certain areas, you should be gracious enough to accept that we are sorry and we're going to, you know, rectify this thing in certain this way. And thirdly, I think listening without judgment, it helps to build that trust. You have to listen to your kids with empathy, and you should stop yourself and refrain from making any judgment, and that refrainment includes giving solution. I believe as a parent with my kids, I believe it is their life, it's not my life, it's their life. They have to live with it whatever way they want to. They have to structure it out. I can only guide them, but I cannot own them. We as a parent must realize that. So these are the things that we must understand. Be authentic, be true to yourself, and live up to your promises, and listen without judgment. This will help you to build that trust. So if I may add to what Sayyeda said, I am an aunt of 7, and from the ages of, you can say, 4 to 18. So the experience I get as the cool aunt, because I'm the youngest in my family, is the trust element that I receive from all my nephews and nieces. So from the teenagers, I get all, of course, the conversations that they're going through, the things that I believe that were not discussed with me as a child. When I was a teenager, I discuss it with them very openly. So it's very easy to do the communication part, which Raana talked about. The promise part, which Sayyeda talked about, is something I can give an example of with my nephew who just completed Quran. And he said that
if I complete this, what will you give me? So I said, whatever you want. So he said, I said, but it has to be in my budget, right? So he said, okay, I just need AirPods. I said, okay, so then you have to complete it before the end of June. So I gave him a target, and then he said, it's very difficult. I said, no, nothing is difficult and impossible. If you need this, then work towards it. So how I do it as a, you can say, aunt is something it's a very interesting experience, because what Sayeda talked about is also the trust element. So a few days back, I was just having a word with my nephew, and he said, nobody gives me anything when I achieve a task. It's only you who keeps her promise. So basically, he doesn't have that trust, and he's actually in the US. He's not even, anywhere else. He's actually in the US. So I told my sister, I said, you know what, you have to build trust with your son, because the next time you tell him to do a task and not, incentivize him for it, then you will not be able to get the work done again.
I think these are excellent points, and we've spun off into the wider family here, because the other thing is your sister has to trust you as a sister, as part of the family, so that you're not spoiling the child, her child, although she doesn't own it. She's only a guardian for a while. And I remember a phrase from my parents, who had sadly died, but my mum would always say, I said, Mum, not too much ice cream. And she said, that's what grandparents do, Neville. And we give them back. So when they're sick in your car, not ours. So but that's the reality. We do spoil our children. I mean, even parents spoil their children. But going back to what Samia said about being honest, and Raana said earlier about owning up to making a mistake. If we, one thing that we do know when we go through life, if we cheat in anything, we just cheat life, we cheat ourselves. And that really comes from how the parents behave in life. Because we see it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. As Eyesha said, these kids are not stupid. They're very good at negotiation. I mean, I'm sure her 3-year-old is working out what the 18-year-old's getting, and the mobile phone that the 18-year-old had to wait until they were 14 perhaps to get it. I guarantee that your 3-year-old will be getting it when they're 11, if not earlier. So, kids are not stupid. They observe. I mean, we were talking last week about, we're not born leaders, but we're born to lead. We're also born to negotiate and born to get out of, pretty sticky circumstances, because we've got this thing up here that everybody's got. We've got a very big computer here, and the mindset's the software. And it's just a question of what software we're putting in all the time. Whether if we put lots of fake news in there, guess what? Rubbish in, rubbish out. It's up to parents to show that honest way, the trusting way, very early on in life, so that we're taught the right way. But let's look at more. Can we look at more about?
Yes, Naila Ansari has joined in, and she wants to ask a question, I guess. Yes, Naila.
Yeah, go. She's gone shy.
No, she's not shy at all. I don't know. I guess I'm unmuting. She's another good friend.
Okay.
Hi, Naila. How are you doing?
How are you? Hi, Neville. How are you? So
Very
glad
well,
to see
Maha.
you again.
Very well. Good.
So glad to see you again.
And
okay,
you.
So I just wanted to share something while we were talking about building the trust between with a child, and it just worked for me. When my children were very young, very very little. In fact, the eldest was probably 5 years old. So I told them one thing one day, because you see, when we talk about building a relationship of honesty and telling them about the values, still we all know that children get influenced by outsiders, and they may go into wrong things as well at times, and they may not exactly follow the role modeling that we sometimes as parents try to demonstrate. So I just told them once that do well, and of course your parents are always there, but I just always wanted to tell them that I am there for you always, and even if you do anything wrong, just trust me and come and tell me about it, that you've done something wrong, because I'm not going to give up on you. I'm going to take you out from there. I will try to solve that for you. We'll come out of it together. But even, so this thing really worked for me, because, they did make mistakes, and all children do. And whenever, something they would do, to this day, now they are 20, my eldest is 27 years old. To this day, even if they, want to experiment something, or, they get different kinds of influences affecting their behavior and thinking and thought processes, and they have been abroad studying. So even if they have a question, they don't normally ask others. I always see them coming back to me and asking me if this is right, if this is ethical, does this work? How does this not work in our system or in our culture? Why would I not do that? Why should I not do that when others are? Things like that. So this kind of relationship only built on this one fact that I told them that whenever you're in trouble or if you've committed a mistake, come back to me and I'm going to make it work for you. I'm going to solve it. So, this is what I wanted to share with you, that at times they may go wrong, but if you're there for them, so that also enhances a relationship between a parent and a child.
I can't tell you how important that is, because if it starts at a very young age, it will transfer into school, it will then transfer into their working life, and it's setting them on a great trajectory, frankly, because like anything else, if we go to someone because we know we've done something wrong, we don't want judgment, frankly, we want help. So if we've got, parents in particular, and this is where I think a lot of parents don't really appreciate that a child of any age that comes to you with a problem is because they trust you. They don't necessarily want the answer. As Raana said, she just wanted a mum to listen. They just want someone that can listen and maybe say, well, how does that feel for you? Have you thought about what you're going to do about it? And then when you get that answer of, well, I'm going to do this, and have you, okay, that sounds okay, but have you thought of the consequences? Is that really what you want to do? So you're that critical friend, really. But it's great that they come to you, because the worst case is they don't go to you and they go somewhere else and they get the wrong advice because it's not really relevant. Or they go to, this is where gang warfare comes into. They go to someone that they trust, but they're trusting a bully. And that bully will definitely give you a solution, but it probably isn't the solution for you. So this is where I think, if anything that we can instill today to every parent or aunt or uncle that's listening, be that friend, cultivate the relationship, and do it as early as you can and as often as you can. I did like, Maha, when you said you set the goal. There's absolutely nothing wrong in setting a goal for a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. Because guess what? They're going to have that when they're 25. So why not start them early?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It is, and it's fun, actually. And you reward the effort that goes in. And if they reach the goal, then, they get the reward.
Go ahead, Aysha, sorry.
Quickly want to add, on the other side, when you there's negative reinforcement, parents need to be honest. They need to mean what they say. In Asian parents, it's a very common thing. If you do this, I'm going to throw you out of the window, or I'll break your legs, or No, you don't mean that. You would never do that to your
No.
kids, so they never take you seriously. You need to come up with punishments and rewards which you actually mean and which the child perceives doable on your part. Only then you can build this, target and negative reinforcement. So I thought I'll add that it goes both ways.
No, you're right. And the thing is, that kick of reality, you need to do some planning as a parent. You need to be ready for some questions that are going to come to you with answers. You've got to be the one that's proactive, because saying I'm going to throw you out the window, and by the way, that's not just Asians, we do that over here as well, okay? It's out of pure frustration, you know. How am I going to get through to you? I'm going to throw you out the window. They know you don't mean it. They know that, therefore, there's no reality behind it. But if you turn around and say, if you continue doing that, actually, something you really like will be taken away from you for a period of time. Yeah. That gets their attention, because it's what's in it for me. You know, remember, these young people that we've got responsibility for a relatively short period of time, where they're sort of frankly, I mean, we've got responsibility till they die. It would appear, as a parent of a 34-year-old that's still making decisions for her, but that's a different issue. But when we've got them for such a small period of time, we need to give them that kick of reality. We need to get them into the real world. And I see some people are saying, how do you do that? You know, well, you give them a cuddle. You ask them a question, you know, you play a game with them. And this is where parents in these days have now got to take more time, a lot more time, I think, than ever before. We've been under lockdown for COVID for the last 5 or 6 months. And I think Eyesha said it, you know, teachers are there to school, parents are there to parent. But it's almost like merged into some, you know, squashy sponge that, you know, you sort of push it and it drips parenting and teaching all in the same sponge, because we haven't been able to segregate it, because the child's been at home on the PC and you've been there schooling the child. And I know it's difficult for parents that want the best out for their kids not to answer the questions. But we need to stop doing that. It's their life. You know, I can't remember who said it's their life. It's absolutely their life. You're just a custodian. You're a guardian. And they've got to do it. So how do you gain their trust? Well, work out what they want, really. And a 3-year-old will tell you, Eyesha, won't they? They'll tell you what they want. Pretty simple. You ask them and they'll tell you. And it's nice, because 3-year-old will definitely tell you.
With your permission, I want to add something here. You know, we were talking about not being judgmental. It is not very easy, you know, when your child comes and supposing they trust you a lot, and they come and say, I've gotten into drugs. I mean, it is impossible for you to, you know, contain yourself or not have that reaction or that facial expression that they'll know that you're judging them. So what I've told my girls, and I hope that works, is that, you know, there are certain family members like Maha in case of her nephews and nieces that they trust, and they're not as scared to share certain things with them as they would be with me maybe. So I have encouraged them, you know, I've given them this person, it is your person. If you have an issue which you think you can't share with me, go to them. I trust them. I know they'll do, you know, they'll take the decision that I trust. So that also works. You can designate a trustworthy person in the family, because your children may not be able to come and share everything with you, no matter how much you trust them. I mean, I don't see. So I think if they have this person in the family or somebody, a friend that you trust, it might be easy to say something that they want you to know as a parent, but they're unable to come and say it on your face. So that could also work. So that, you know, that's something parents can try.
I think you make a really good point there.
To add something here.
Before...
I really want to add something to Eyesha's point of view. You know, Eyesha, Neville, in Pakistan, especially in our culture, there's a taboo. And the taboo is that you cannot talk about everything with your parents, you know, and that is how, you know, children start thinking that all my parents want is to hear the good news. So they always want to hear the good things, you know.
Yeah.
And it really, I think it becomes a huge impediment for children not to open up and ask questions. So again, you know, I just wanted to share something. When my children were very small, I told them one thing again. You know, I said to them that you can talk about anything with me. And I told them right away at that point in time that you're not going to allow anybody to touch your private parts. They are all boys. I have 3 boys. And I told them very straightforwardly that if anybody tries to touch you, you have to tell me right away. And nobody is allowed to do that except your mother, because right now you're little and I have to give you bath and I have to, you know, wash you up and everything. And so it's your father or it's myself and nobody else. And again, only this one sentence opened up, you know, a myriad of things. And they started to realize that, you know, my mother is very open and she can talk about any topic. And this is how it all started. So can you imagine, all my 3 boys would not go to their father, but they have always come to me and asked me about every milestone that they have experienced and, you know, turning into a teenage and then going into an adult life. So they would ask me all kinds of questions. Okay, how does the baby, you know, how do you give birth to a baby? And then, you know, and why should you not have sex before marriage? And all these questions have always come up. And how do I grow up, and, you know, when I will know that I've grown up, things like that. And this all worked because, again, right in the beginning, I think there's a lot to do with early childhood, that the way you talk to your children, use very normal, friendly language, and, you know, always be a good listener. And, you know, I think reading stories, talking about different topics, I think that really helps. So what I'm trying to say is that parents sometimes set too rigid boundaries, and children then decide what to ask, and they do ask, but then they don't ask everything. And they might go to, you know, they read books, or they might go to their friends or somebody else to ask about those questions that they think that parents would not be able to ask, especially the mothers, that the mothers would not be able to answer these questions. They would be shy in answering those questions. So I think when you're raising your children, that this needs clarification, that you can ask me anything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Naila. And the interesting thing there is that if you've done the groundwork when they're very young, they will come to you at their time. And I think that's the bit that you certainly with the sex talk arena. I mean, I'm in some respects, I'm horrified what's going on in education in the UK, because they're teaching 5 and 6 year olds about sex.
Yeah, and that's too much.
Well, the point is, it probably is too much for the majority of them, but probably right for some of them. But like anything else, the reason why they're doing it, unfortunately, is the wrong reason. So, but the best person, the best organisation, if you like, if we call the family, the parents an organisation, to talk about these very intimate subjects are parents with their kids. Yes. But it's when they come to you in this particular arena, you know, so if they come to you to say, oh, I fell off my bike and I've got a boo-boo, you know, I've scratched my leg, you're there for that. I didn't like what someone was saying, so I punched them in the face. You're there for that too. But equally in a non-judgmental side around it all. And I hate to say this, you know, it's not easy. You really do have to sort of stand backwards and almost like take the high ground, bite your tongue and listen to the problem. And as parents, I'm afraid we're not very good at that. We tend to jump into the solution mode because it's the speed. We want a solution quickly, get the problem out of the way and get onto something that's really important. But unfortunately, it's that journey that's the most important, because that's the problem at the time. But we're all too quick to do it. I mean, I did it. You know, I still do it now. I don't, you know, I don't get everything right every time. In fact, if I'm lucky, it's 80-20. So, but it's acknowledging that this is a difficult subject, but just try your best.
If I may ask a question from Eyesha, what has your experience been as far as teaching is concerned and as far as developing the personality of a child is concerned through teaching? I mean, what are some of the few top challenges that you see with children in school?
I think for children, the best thing that a teacher can give to a child is acceptance. You know, whatever they are, whatever they're, instead of setting targets and saying you meet up or you don't meet up. I mean, that's when you actually, you know, put the kid in a very bad spot. If the child can be accepted for whatever they are, whether they are good at a particular thing, they learn a certain way. So I think that's the best gift that a teacher can give. And this is what when we train our teachers, is what we tell them, you know, celebrate each child's individuality. Do not set standards.
Yeah.
And I think that really works very well for the kids. So, and as far as, I think this is very similar in parenting and teaching, what we've been talking about. End of the day, no matter, because you see, teachers are also human beings, they're individuals, they will treat kids differently, just like parents. End of the day, what I've noticed is, and in my case also, I could never talk to my parents about all these issues, and, you know, so I had all these, my parents were judgmental. I mean, if I did something wrong, they would take it up to, you know, God knows what level, that she must have not only done this, but this also. But end of the day, you turn out to be okay as long as as long as your kids believe that you love them, you know. So I never doubted my parents' unconditional love and of them being there for me in their own limited or unlimited capacity, but me having that faith that if I reach out to them, they'll be there. And they can scold me, they can judge me, but eventually they'll be there and they're there on my side. I think every child will turn out to be okay. And the teachers can do the same thing, because teachers are second to parents, you know. So that is one faith that a child needs to have, and everything will fall into place eventually. It'll take time. Everybody grows at a different rate, but eventually it will work out. So never let your doubt this particular thing.
Right. So similar to how parents, you know, are, I mean, my experience with one of my few teachers has been very good and very scary. So like, I was scared of my maths teacher. Whenever I used to look at her, I used to, like, you know, just become a statue. And I was very, very, you know, open with my, you can say, English teacher. So so I was relaxed with her. But I think, what would you say? I mean, of course, it's a style of, like, you have style of management styles, you have teaching styles. So what would you, with your experience, say would be, or is the best teaching style that a teacher could have for the, you know, generation today?
I think we need to respect the kids. What teachers forget is that they're in the role of teacher, so maybe respect is not required. You need to respect even a 2-year-old or a 20-year-old. Kids have done, I mean, you know, if you, for example, there's a child wearing a little stud in the ear, and I don't allow that in the school. I'm talking about an 18-year-old. If I go and say, what the hell is this? Why are you wearing this? You know, I can expect a very different reaction. But if I respect them and I tell them, look, I really like what you're wearing. It's looking very nice on you, but please, can I have this, for example? And what would you do with it, Sam? And I'll say, I'll also try it on. And they just smile and take it off. And, you know, so I need to respect them instead of being judgmental. So from a teacher's perspective, the kid needs to know that the teacher not only accepts me, but also respects me for what I am. I think these are the two things that can actually give the child the confidence to grow and to learn, and the confidence to ask questions, which is, I feel, asking questions is the basis for all knowledge. That's what I have learned. So I think respect and trust and love, unconditional love, parenting or teaching, it's similar.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fabulous. Samia want to ask a question, I guess? Sayyida Samia?
Yeah, I just want to further two things which we have left behind a couple of minutes ago, especially to Neville. What does being there actually means? Does being there actually means that you have to come up with the solution all the time? Does being there means that you have to be part of your kid's life, of each and everything that happens to them? Thus, being there means that you will accept your kids only when they will succeed. I don't know. I think we as a parent confuse this phrase of being there. You don't have to come up with a solution all the time, I feel. If you allow a kid to make his decision, then you should be prepared that he will fail as well. He will succeed as well. So in whatever way he comes up, you have to accept him, and he's still on board. So being there means that also. And being there, it doesn't mean that your kid is going to talk to you about each and everything that's happening in his life. He has his own circle of references also. Some things he will discuss with his friends, something in his own age group, something with his teachers. So we as a parent should not expect our kids that he should come up with each and everything that's happening with him to us without any reservation. I think we need to fix this thing up in our own minds also. My question is to Neville, because he has got a lot of gray hairs on his head, so I think he can shed more light on that.
Only that I've done it longer and wronger for longer, if you like. It's a great, Samuel, it's an absolute great question, because being there for a 1-year-old is completely different to being there for an 18-year-old. And the only common thread is this unconditional love. So for a 1-year-old, you probably are providing lots of the solutions. Now, whether you like it or not, that's what a 1-year-old is demanding, really. They can't go and make lunch. They can't put the roast on. You don't really want them to put the kettle on and mess around with gas. Not at 1 year old, but maybe at 5 or 6, you've released that chain that you put around them. So being there, as I say, apart from the unconditional love bit, but they need to know that he's there all the time, and as most parents give it anyway, the rest of it is really dependent upon what they need at the time. And it's a lot of things that we see in public life. I mean, I see it a lot in the UK. I used to take my boys to different football matches on a weekend. I used to put the taxi cap on and get in the car and literally ferry each child to a particular game, hoping that one will finish slightly earlier than another so we can jump in the car and go to the brothers to see the end of that game, so they didn't have to wait, etc., etc. It was a juggling match, to say the very least. You become very good at chess if you go down that route. But what I saw all the time was parents were shouting and screaming on the sideline about what the children should do and how good their child was, and get up and run back and don't do that and don't do this and you can't do this, and they're not letting their child live. They're living their life through their children. And it is probably the cardinal sin, frankly. And I don't know any religious book that says you control your children. Everyone's here for a reason, but you let them go, you're there for them, but they may not want you there, like physically or anything other than in a pure supportive arena. I hope that makes sense. But it's simple that a 1-year-old, you have to be there. And an 18-year-old, you're there when they want you.
What about the 34-year-old?
Same goes, They're there when you're there when they want you. I mean, I have a great relationship with all of our kids, and I know that they'll go to my wife, who is either their mum or stepmum for certain things, and they'll come to me for other things. But
the good cop and the bad cop.
Exactly. But they also know that my wife and I do talk to each other. And even on occasions, my ex-wife and I talk to each other when it's the kids, the kids are important. So as as Eyesha said right at the beginning, you know, kids are not stupid. They're pretty smart. They will play one off against the other. And the point is, you need to have that consistency. And it's one word that I think we need to talk about in parenting. It's that consistent behaviour, not radical, you know, not off the wall, because then you're throwing in a complete curveball and you're upsetting their understanding of who you are and where you're operating. But again, you know, the reason we're running this today is because it's not easy. Parenting is not easy, but it's so
teaching, I would say. So is teaching. You know, parenting and teaching plays a vital role.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've got teachers that are parents, so they can tell us that what you do in the teaching world and then you take it home and you don't do in the parenting world, then you start to think, that's not being real true to myself. So parents could be the best teachers, but equally they could be the worst. And when you get the two working together, I think you've got gold dust. You know, this is a license to print money, really, when you got the two working together.
So I think I want to sum it up in a very, you see, when we're parenting and we're teaching, in both these roles, we are trying to prepare kids to be in a world maybe 10, 15 years from now, to become individuals. So we can't do it the way our parenting was done, because that was done for today. And we need to be futuristic, you know, so we need to keep on constantly evolve. Secondly, I just want to quickly share my favorite quote from Khalil Gibran on parenting. I'm sure most of you must have read it, but just an excerpt from that. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards, but forward. So you see,
Beautiful.
You cannot.
Beautiful.
So it's a long poem, very nice. You must read up on that. But this is what I can sum it up with. I mean, you know, parenting and teaching, I think, very close to each other, and they are the first and second role models for a child. And for me, underlining factors: acceptance, love, respect, unconditional love. If you have these, you've got it. You can't go wrong.
Thank you very much, Eyesha. Thank you, Neville, and all the participants. Thank you, Raana, for coming back again.
You. Sorry, I was having a little technical issue there.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you, Maha, for co-hosting.
Most welcome.
And all the participants who have participated, it was nice. And it was, you know, like, again, I would say parents and teachers play, as Eyesha says, you know, a very vital role in the development of a child. And if we have all these ingredients, as Eyesha spoke about, you know, like you have as Neville was saying, you know, a gold person or a diamond person who would be, you know, who would really flourish in the practical world, I would say.
So thank you.
Thank you
It was a
again
great
for
and
having
interesting
us.
discussion.
Sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eyesha, and thank you, Raana. Thank you, Neville, again.
Thank you.
One
Yeah.
thing more, Shahma, before you,
I think Raana
before
wants
you
to say
sign out,
something.
Sorry?
Yeah.
before you sign out, Shahma, this is the part 2. So when is the part 3?
Oh. What do you want me to do at a part 3 on? Tell me, Samya.
Anything more than that. I think Raana needs to complete the book, so let's help her to complete the book.
Would love to.
Yes, if Eyesha and Raana would like to do more, you know, definitely, you know, I'll take the opinion of the participants, what exactly they need, and then, you know, we can come back with Neville, Eyesha, and Raana.
Absolutely, would
Yes,
love to.
all three of them are gem, and you like to hear some more from them.
Oh no, thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye
Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.